Hi guys, hope you're having a lovely weekend. Today is the 24th of October and it's coming up to I think about 5:30 and I'm about to do something that I haven't done in years. It's a bit of a busy weekend anyway because I'm in the middle now of redecorating my office, so everything is all over the place. But as part of something I'm putting together for a client to do with training, I need to go into my old case files from the time that I was in care. After I went through sexual abuse as a child, from the age of 9 to 13 years old, I was placed into care. I was in care from the age of 13 to 17 years old. I left care at 17 pregnant and got my first flat. But during the course of my time in care, I was put in different kids' homes, had different foster placements. Also, as part of that broken, dysfunctional life, being in care, I also had lots of different social workers and different key workers. And the information I need to get is to do with my experiences in these relationships. And I got my files from care I would say about 17 years ago. And it came in really handy when I was writing my book, Daughter Arise, back in 2008, because then I was able to get dates and names and, get pieces of information that I couldn't remember. And from that time, 2008, I haven't looked in these files since. But today I am going to look in these files. And when I got them from social services, they arrived to me in a horrible state. But here they are, 2 files of my life up until this point, 17 and a half being in care. I had to pray about even going in these files, and I have to remind myself that the girl that I was then, I am not the woman now. That girl, Yvonne, that I was, went through so much, had so much trauma, had to go through things that a child shouldn't have had to go through. And because of that, the Yvonne that I was then did a lot of things that I am not proud of. I behaved in ways that, if only I could go back and apologise to the staff for the way that I treated some of them and for the things I said to people at the time, because I was hurt, I was broken, I was angry. There was so much going on in my life. My life was turned upside down. Not that I'm using this as an excuse, but a lot of the things that I did back then was birthed out of pain and trauma. So I'm going to go through these files. I'm going to keep the camera running and I'm going to share with you some little things from my case files from when I was in care. It's got a lot of dust on it because it's been sitting at the bottom of a cupboard for a few years. So I'm going to go through one of 2 first and tell you my thoughts on anything that I come across that's worth sharing. So first thing I've come across is a letter from one of the therapeutic homes I was in called Cumberlow, and they were invoicing a social services department saying there was a balance outstanding. To stay in these therapeutic homes or foster parents, the local authority, the council or the county borough had to pay the home or the foster parent for their services, or the therapeutic homes. So this is interesting. One of my social workers that I had, this was back in 1993, was talking about the fact that she has concerns about my contact with my mother. And she just says here, whilst acknowledging the fact that Yvonne loves her mother and wants to maintain contact with her, it appears that she gains little in the way of support from the contact, and in fact frequently ends up listening to her mother's problems. Yvonne spoke of her concern for wanting to protect her sister, and it was agreed that my social worker at the time would write to my mum stating her concerns. Also, it was quite hard for them to establish regular contact between my brother, my sister and myself. Because of me speaking out, my dad didn't want me to have contact with my siblings. And I remember that quite well. Had problems getting up in the mornings, apparently. This is in 1993, so at the time I was pregnant. It was one of my last placements before I left for independent living. Yeah, lots of stuff that staff write, it just seemed like just out of like their own notion of things they thought they knew about me. Yeah, I seem to see here, just from looking through my files, I just seem to just have a problem with, you know, acting out, had a problem with anger. I had a lot of up and down moods, it seems like, as well. You know what's amazing is that when I read these reports, like from staff in the homes that I was in and just from people who had interactions with me, you know, I've definitely come a long way. Just from reading the reports from social workers and different people that had interactions with me, it seems to be a mixed bag. What I'm gathering just from the things that I'm reading, what staff wrote about me, some of them I think was spot on. Other things, it just seems like generalizations from information or things that they studied that they know about. That's one of the issues I think I had from being in the care system, because it was so unstable, moving different placements and having different social workers and different staff in your life all the time. I think it was hard for staff or social workers to get a true representation of who I was. Obviously, these things are written down in record, their views, their thoughts about who you are as a person. But even with social workers, for instance, you know, I had quite a few changes with social workers. One of the things I always remember is that they seemed to know you before they actually knew you. Meaning that obviously they had your information about you, they spoke to staff or different people that had information about me, and basically that formed up, I believe, a preconception of who they thought I was. And then they met me and got to know me, but I think that in their head already they had their own thoughts about me because of what they read. Just going through and it's just talking about my depression and the overwhelming guilt I felt, you know, about everything that happened after I spoke out about my abuse. Just talking a lot about my struggles with power and struggles with adults in authority because of my fear of rejection, betrayal, and because of the abuse of power of my dad. All these things really are to be expected. I mean, I was a 13-year-old girl trying to come to terms with so many things, trying to understand so many different overwhelming feelings in me. I mean, what do they expect? So a psychotherapist that I had quite earlier on in my journey says that I am quite a complex character who possesses a logical and intelligent mind. But according to her at the time, I was using that influence in a negative way, especially with other young people. So I came across something I wrote here on the 26th of the 1st, 1993, and it's basically just asking me some questions about who I am and the things I want to achieve. And I would describe myself as pretty confident and intelligent. I get angry when staff wind me up in a situation. I feel upset because of my family. I'm afraid of becoming a failure and not achieving my goals. I like it when I achieve something. If I could have my way, I would study a lot harder. That's one of the things that's consistently mentioned in some of the reports that I've read so far, is that I found it hard to concentrate, hard to focus on tasks at a time. To be honest with you, it's something I still struggle with even now. But God is really helping me with that, and I'm trying to get better, because sometimes it can be quite hard. My worst moment ever was when I began drinking. Yeah, I started drinking when I was about 14 years old. Also as well, smoking weed as well. My greatest achievement was, and then I've put I don't know. I think I can help myself by staying out of trouble. Yep, that much is definitely true, because that's something I definitely did struggle with. It's funny that I would describe myself as confident, but at the time, the psychotherapist noted, and other staff who had contact with me noted, is that I didn't seem to be sure of my own identity and didn't seem to be a confident person, more like feigning confidence. I'm going to do a video and talk about some of the kids' homes that I was in during my time in care, but one of them, which was in 1992, called Middlesex Lodge. And girls who have been in Middlesex Lodge have a lot to say about it. Trust me, I had a lot to say about it as well. An incident that took place there, I was involved in rioting, and I was charged with a fray, and I had to go to court. So it was just here talking about my upcoming court case at Uxbridge Court. And this report that I'm reading is basically a report by a social worker for my statutory review, and that's where all the professionals get together. I think one of the saddest things that I've come across so far is reading about my care and concern for my sister, and seeing, just from what this social worker is writing when she was trying to talk to my mum about, trying to establish some more regular contact between us, and that not being possible because the social services could not pay for my brother and sister's fares, only at certain times, like sometimes on school holidays. But they wanted my mum to pay towards fares for other times for, my brother and sister to come to see me, and for whatever reason my mum just saying that that wasn't possible. But that's one of the sad things that I've come across in reading so far, is just that at the time, me and my sister did have some type of good relationship. Bearing in mind, I was young, we're talking like 1993, I was 16, my sister's like 12, something like that. And all these disrupted relationships when I was uprooted and taken into care, because that's what happens, you see. When you're taken into care, everything is turned upside down. I remember how hard I found it to sleep at night, because me and my sister always shared a double bed, and then going to my first foster placement, which was an emergency placement, and sleeping in a bunk bed at the bottom, but waking up in the night and finding that my sister wasn't there. There was a lot of traumatic things that I experienced, not just because of the sexual abuse that I went through, but also because of being in care and having to deal with all that. It wasn't as simple as, oh, I can go and see my sister, or I can talk to my sister. It was quite hard. And just seeing that this social worker at the time really trying to keep this relationship between me and my siblings alive, and having to deal with everything that came along with that. It's made me quite reflective, actually, because I don't have a relationship with my siblings anymore. Really the beginning of the end really was going through the abuse and all the fallout from that. Just in later years, I think the relationships just kind of fell apart for various different reasons. I can see here that, Me and my sister really wanted that at that time, and the social worker I had at the time was really trying to fight for it. So I just had to take a breather for a second, because just going through this file, I just realised that the girl that I was then was really broken, was in a really, really broken place. And I get a sense just from reading the reports, I was expected to do the work, expected to do the work of working through my abuse and working through my issues. But then it dawned on me that I didn't even know what my issues were. I didn't even know how my sexual abuse affected me. Nobody has explained that to me. All I know that I was put in care because of sexual abuse, but no one explained to me what that was. But yet, just from reading the statutory review reports and reports from key workers and people, I was expected to work on my issues, but I didn't even have an understanding of what my issues were. It's just sad to see the things that I went through, and I was just expected to understand, to know, to just get on with it. And they talk a lot about me being scared of rejection, scared of facing up to personal responsibility and all this stuff. What does it mean to a 13-year-old girl, or to a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old girl that has no kind of understanding of even what she's even gone through? And I know I had these therapy sessions and group therapy sessions, but as I've mentioned on other videos, I didn't start the real work of facing who I was until I was 22 years old. I was 5 years out of the care system, and it was only when I had the breakdown that I had to start facing who I was. All the time I was in care, I just spent a lot of time running from my problems, because if I'm being honest, it was easy to do in care. It was easy to drink, it was easy to smoke weed, it was easy to abscond from kids' homes, it was easy to walk out and slam a door when conversations got too tough. It was easy to do those things. Yeah, that's just one of my observations that I've just, was thinking about. I don't read anybody in here so far that's even told me what it was that I even experienced. In all fairness, I had a couple of good therapists whilst I was in care. I didn't really think much about group therapy with my other peers at the time. Even in those sessions, nobody talked about why they were in care. They would just talk about things that were going on for them at the time. Nobody talked about their parents. Nobody talked about why they were in care. But the individual therapy sessions that I had, I did find helpful, but I didn't talk about my sexual abuse at all. And if I talked about it, it was really skimming over the issue. I went through sexual abuse, my dad did this and this. But if the therapist would ask me, how do you feel about that? And wanted to go into feelings and get inside my thoughts, I would just shut down and, divert attention by doing silly things or talking about something else. But, I had two that I really do remember that were actually really, really good. And really did try and engage with me, in a way that I could understand. I wasn't ready to talk about the trauma, and I wasn't ready to dig deep into the whys and how it made me feel. Now, this is interesting. I was given a flat at 17 years old. I wasn't taught anything really about basic living skills. I did learn a little bit about cooking from a key worker I had in one of my last therapeutic homes at Cumberlow Lodge, who taught me some little bits about cooking. And, even in my first foster placement, when I was 13, my foster sister at the time taught me about cooking as well. So I had some basic kind of skills when it came to cooking. Also, my mum had shown me how to cook as well. But I wasn't taught how to handle money. I wasn't taught about building boundaries, or went to classes that helped me to, be able to establish firm boundaries with people. But by the time I was 17, I was aged out of the care system by social services, and I was pregnant. I was put into my first flat, but yet reading the care plan, it said that I was not ready for independent living and that I would need to remain in a placement until the very least the age of 18. And I believe one of the things that really changed that was the fact that I was pregnant. Being in care at that time when I was pregnant, social services didn't support me at that time. I don't believe I was ready for a flat at 17, not with all my issues and stuff. I mean, nowadays, I know that young people in care, once they get to an age where they're ready to leave care at 18, there is a lot of boroughs, a lot of local authorities that are doing longer placements for young people in care. Like if, for instance, there was a foster placement and they're going to university, they can stay on till they're 25. Or if they are leaving care, they're put into accommodated living, which is like hostels, but they have like a staff or staff on hand for the young people, which is fantastic. Yeah, I don't think I was ready for leaving care at 18 either, but at the end of the day, that's what happened, and I had to learn to deal with that situation. This next review meeting, which was in November 1992, my key worker at the time, had a very different view on my depression now. So it wasn't that I was now using it as a manipulative tool. It was now acknowledged that I suffered from depression. And they noted that it has visibly lifted, and I was finding it a lot easier to cope, especially at night, because night times I used to find going to bed hard, and that I was getting up and attending the education program on a fairly regular basis. And it was also noted that Yvonne is very ambitious. So this is, again, very good news. But what I didn't like when I was reading this is that automatically, it was seen that I was being manipulative, when in fact, one of the signs of depression is finding it hard to get out of bed in the morning. I did try my best to engage with staff, and that was also noted as well, especially when I was going to a therapist. I was making good progress and showing enthusiasm, so I was trying to put in the hard work of dealing with some things as well. Just looking on this, they just comment on, the difficult relationship with me and my mum, and that I was very angry with her. One of my key workers pointed out that I was a natural leader and was often used by the group to express their feelings. Wow, look at this. It's an interesting observation from reading this file and seeing how people perceived my so-called influence and power. Because as I shared, some people thought that I had a very negative impact on the group, especially when I was angry. But other staff seeing my group actually said that I was a natural leader, and other peers in my group would use me to express their feelings. So I feel really nice reading that, because it shows that I was trying to grow. I was trying to, the best way I knew how, deal with my situation and become the person that I wanted to become by using tools such as psychotherapy.